exercise at the end. We'll take questions at the end.
Note the question.
Okay. Anybody else will take questions at the end. Thank you.
So just I'd say there, if any of you have any questions, note the question at the time, and I'll stay for as long as necessary at the end answering questions as best I can. Okay? Last night, in another context, I was talking to a group. I started off by saying you're all very welcome and thank you for coming. So it would be appropriate for me to use those words here tonight, because I'm invited and I haven't been here for about 20 years. So unfortunately, because different things in life have got in the way. But I've still been involved in researching, family history and so on. And I suppose it's often well for us to pose the question: why are we doing this? Why are we doing this at all? Why are we all here tonight? Why do we devote some of our valuable time to researching our ancestors and so on? Well, when I think of the very able and accomplished speakers who have spoken here in the past, people like Professor Jody and people like Charles Goldberg and people like the late Tim Callaghan, God be good to him. I feel, I feel very humbled, to be trying to as it were, follow in their footsteps. And I certainly feel that I'm, standing on the shoulders of giants. So I hope that I can say something that will be of some interest to you and of some use to you and will be helpful. I suppose it could be said, that family history research tends to become a long-term rather than a short-term commitment. Challenge, obsession, or indeed it can be driven by all of these or by other motivations. But something has to drive us, whatever it is. There's something to drive us to be involved in this. For the research to be successful, its conclusions and outcomes need to be informed by accurately interpreted information usually obtained from recognised, reliable, relevant family history-related sources. In this respect, Tony going to kill me now. In this respect, the Irish Roots Guide by Tony McCarthy is an outstanding, I would say, and very, very useful, and probably an essential reference and resource, as it includes user-friendly, step-by-step advice and information on conducting family history research. Importantly, this invaluable resource refers to 12 major sources of information likely to be of use to any family historian. Now, Cork National School Registers, which I have researched and put together, can also be a useful reference book and can offer helpful guidelines on using school registers to research family roots. This book cites the years of pupil registration, the location where the registers may be consulted in respect of listed functioning and non-functioning national schools. The related register volumes contain a wealth of information and substitute census material for the years before 1901, when census material is lost or destroyed, or for the years after 1911, when census material exists but is not accessible because it hasn't been made available to us. Now, petty, and again, now, in relation to, we'll say, in relation to school registers, I just said the following as well. A rapid growth in the national school system, corresponding increase in use of school registers between 1833 and 1900, resulted in the recording of a range of accurate information about pupils on their entry to national schools. Such school register entries include information on place of residence or address, date of birth, parents' occupation, religion, attendance and progress details, and also information on the previous national school attended if the person has moved to this school, or the school that the person has moved to, if the person moved to some other place. Now, this information is quite helpful to the genealogist, and an examination of the following register entries clearly illustrate this. Philogoic male register shows that Dennis Hallisey entered the school on the 23rd of June 1990, that his father was a farm labourer who resided in the townland of Genealogical. The register also shows that Dennis Hallisey was a Roman Catholic, that he previously attended Ballinora National School, County Cork. Entries in the Ballinora register show that this boy lived at in the townland of Ballyshawneen while attending that school, and that he previously attended Easton's Hill National School in Cork City, and that his father worked as a labourer. Now, entries in the Philogoic male register show also that pupils Edward and Peter Joyce had attended Castle Townsend National School, County Cork, and that their father was an RIC sergeant in Castle Townsend. Now, the Castle Townsend female register index lists a May and a Bridget Joyce. An examination of the relevant entries shows that both were sisters of Edward and Peter above, and that they had previously attended Mill Street Convent National School, County Cork. Entries in the latter register confirm this and show that their father was an RIC acting sergeant, that the family lived in the town, and that the girls had previously attended Dunmanway Convent National School. Now, the latter Dunmanway School register entries show that both girls attended that school from 1901 to 1905, that their father at that stage was a policeman, and that the family lived on the main street. Now, most school registers in respect of functioning or non-functioning national schools are stored and can be consulted in functioning national schools by arrangement with the school principal. The remaining registers are stored and can be consulted in the National Archives. I think there are about 60 of them there. Cork Archives, Archives of the Department of Education and Science, and the homes of private individuals. Now, quite a number of registers would survive from the 1880s. The survival rate of registers previous to that, is not great. For example, in the 1830s, you had 136, national schools registered on the board, and there were only registers, as far as we can ascertain, surviving in respect to 3 of those schools. 1840s, 366 schools were under the board. Registers survived in respect of 4 of those. 1486, the 1850s, 486 registers, 486 schools, 7 survived. The register of 7 schools survived. Now, the 1860s, 550 schools operating under the board, 90 of those registers survived. 1870s, 681 schools operating under the board, 179 registers survived. 1880s, 713 schools under the board, 242 registers survived. 1890s, 753 schools operating under the board, 317 of those registers survived. Now, a lot of them have been lost for different reasons, and there's nothing we can do about it. We have to accept that we are where we are, and we have to make the best of it and move on. But the thing about the registered bin is, you see, this book is available in the library, and it's, what you can do is, if you want to use it, you just we go along and check out the schools, of the functioning national schools. There's a table of functioning national schools and a list of non-functioning national schools, okay? As was the case in, we'll say, 1996, okay? Now what you do is, if you want to, research your ancestors, find out about them, and okay, they attended such a school, you look it up here in the list. And first of all, you say to yourself, you look and check, do registers survive from that school, and what registers survive. So you can see there the dates in which registrations in respect of the school. You can see, for example, if we take here, we'll say, let's say Castlelyons the registrations of pupils at that school date from 1861, okay, right up to the present time, from 1861 up to the present time. Now that's reasonable enough, when you consider the rate of growth. So you can do that. Now that all sounds great, but you see, you have to go along then. You have to liaise with school principals. You have to make an appointment. You have to be facilitated in looking at the register. And the extent to which it will be facilitated can vary from one place to another, from one school to another. But that's the story. And in respect to what I did there, look, I had to visit a number of schools all over the place, and talk with a number. But it works. I mean, you can do it, but it takes time. It takes a lot of time. You need time in your hands, and you need to be able to make appointments with principals and so on, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, so much for National School Registers as a source of information when you're researching your family. Now, Petty Sessions Court order books are another useful source of information. When you're doing family history research. And these Petty Session order books and related local newspaper reports on these court proceedings provide a valuable insight into local life in Ireland from the 1850s to 1924, the year when district courts replaced Petty Session courts. And Petty Sessions order books are extremely useful to genealogists, historians of crime, judicial system, or even historians of local life. However, only brief summaries of individual cases are included in the order books, but you do get the date of the case, and you do get the names of the people involved, and in that way then you can go to the local press report, and you will get far more details and far more information about each case there, and potentially about your ancestors. Now, you don't have to be a major criminal to appear before a Petty Sessions court. If you're an unmuzzled dog, an unlicensed dog, if I'd be talking about give you an example of some of the cases that you could quite easily appear before one of these courts. Or if your pig broke out and wandered into a neighbour's field and ate all the neighbour's turnips or something, you could end up before one of these courts. Now, you see, so only brief summaries of cases are included in the order books, as I said, but fortunately this limited information on court proceedings can usually be greatly increased by consulting more detailed coverage in local newspaper reports. And the Petty Sessions Court's proceedings will be normally reported in the local newspaper after, maybe in the week after the case, and another thing as well to bear in mind is that even if the order book for the Petty Sessions Court, has been lost, and because some of them are not available, you can consult. You can, for example, find out in case of your locality, your village, we'll say, for example, if you consult the Guy's Directory, for example. The Guy's Directory will give you the name of the Petty Session Court that serves that area, right? And where it was held, and how frequently the court sat, and so on. In relation to these Petty Sessions courts, I'll just say a few things about them. Petty Sessions were the lowest level of courts in Ireland in the 19th and early 20th century, and were the equivalent of the modern district court. And so they came about because, I suppose, following the practice of what was occurring of Petty Sessions courts in England, justices in County Cork began the practice of meeting regularly to deal with minor criminal cases in the 1820s. Now, this idea spread to other areas outside of County Cork and was adopted eventually by Dublin Castle, by the government, and this led to the establishment of petty session courts throughout the country, and they were given a kind of a legal statutory basis. The Constabulary Ireland Act, for example, of 1836, provided for the appointment of salaried, or remunerated resident magistrates in each county. The JPs, or Justices of the Peace, they were property owners, usually local landlords. Their services were provided on a voluntary basis, free of charge. But of course they had a vested interest in being in that role, because in maintaining law and order in their own areas, very often among their own tenants, keeping them controlled and so on, so they own the property and they control the courts, Now, these RMs appointed by Dublin Castle, you will see that they were appointed in Ireland. That was really Dublin Castle appointed them, and they were prohibited from having any other remunerated occupation while they were RMs. They could be fired at any time. They were appointed, but they could be fired at any time too. They tended to be ex-British Army officers. The JPs tended to be property owners. These tended to be ex-British Army officers. There was no requirement for any of these justices to have any legal training at all, So we might find that surprising. There was no requirement at all for them to have any legal training. The 1851 Petty Sessions Ireland Act provided for the setting up of petty session districts. In other words, that each court would serve petty sessions. Certain districts would be served by petty sessions. Now there were a number of them in County Cork. There were a number of them in County Wicklow had 14 different districts, as far as I know. It seems like that for County Wicklow. Then this 1851 Act as well provided for the recording of, we'll say, the details of cases that appeared before these courts. One of the justices then present shall thereupon enter or cause the clerk to enter. By the way, there was a clerk usually in these courts, and it was the clerk who recorded this information, that we now find in the order books. And now a judge could, but it was usually the clerk that did it, they did the clerical work, in other words. No, the landlords and property owners were above all that kind of thing anyway. It was also to be stated, you see, in the order book, we'd say, for example, if a case was dismissed, whether it was dismissed on its merits, or without prejudice to a further complaint. And one of the justices then present was obliged to sign his name opposite any order, the order that was made by the court. And once the details of the case were entered into the order book, and then once the RM, the resident magistrate, or the JP, the Justice of the Peace, signed on the dotted lines were signed, there was a special column at the end that he signed. And once he signed, the order of the court became legal and binding and so on. Now that's an example there of what happened. If you look at the end, you can't see that probably, but or some of you can. In the last column there of the audit book, a sixpenny stamp. This is in 1990 now. Probably similar things happened previously. Was put there, and the justice signed across it. You know, and you might have two justices. They both signed across it. You know, put their signatures across that. That meant then that whatever decision they had made, that was the law, so to speak. Now, the justice meted out by this course was summary justice. In other words, the judge there, whoever he was, the justices, their verdict was they gave the verdict. That was it. You know, no jury served in these courts. Now, the audit books were divided into 15 columns, covering the particulars of each case. Now, the information given includes the date of the hearing, the name of the Justice of the Peace or the resident magistrate, the names and addresses of the complainants, in other words, the policemen or the private individuals who brought the case to the court, who did, you know. The cause of the complaint. Now, it's in this column that you learn really what the case was about, you know. And it could be something like this: that on a certain date, that at a certain place, that Johnny Murphy did ride a horse furiously on the public street or on the public road to the endangerment of the well-being of the public. You know, that represents the wording of a lot of such cases. You know, it might be riding a horse, or it might be driving a horse on trap, which happened in one prosecution in the Mill Street Petty Sessions Court. I think it was possibly in the early 1900s. Or it could be, I'll give an example of some of these maybe later on. Now, so the cause of the complaint was another column gave for that information, and then the order of conviction or dismissal. Now, there was another order as well, a referral, you know, because if the court, this Petty Sessions Court, had no jurisdiction, let's say, in the case of certain crimes like murder, rape, serious crimes, it didn't have any jurisdiction. But it was legally obliged to process these cases, even that it had no jurisdiction. So what it did was, it recorded the details, the details of the case were recorded, and the case then was referred to a higher court. Usually the Court of Quarter Sessions was there, but in the case of murder it would be the county assizes, you know, the Cork County Assizes here in Cork. That happened now in a certain case that called in the village of King Williamstown, my own local village, which is now Ballydesmond, where a farmer was murdered by his nephew, in fact. And it started in the Petty Sessions Court in Knockdegree, and progressed all the ways up to the assizes, and eventually local knowledge would local people believed that a number of the family were involved in the murder, but only one guy, an 18-year-old, was eventually convicted, and he was hanged in Cork eventually. There was an appeal to the Lord Lieutenant for clemency on grounds of his age, you know, and so on. But he was very unfortunate because this was around the time, this was 1882 when the murder occurred, the time when the landlord Arthur Herbert was murdered in Castleisland, only 12 miles back, and where the Invincibles murdered the Irish, the secretary and another secretary in the Phoenix Park, and so he received no clemency, whatever. The sentence wasn't commuted to prison or anything like that. He was hanged in Cork, The only hanging that occurred in this county in 1883, it was hanging the year after the crime, it was the only hanging. So anyway, in that year, 1883, the only hanging in County Cork. There were other hanging persons all the country, but I remember them. The cases dealt with at petty sessions varied considerably. The most common cases tried are those of drunkenness, about a third of them, fell into this category, drunkenness. Assault, about 16% of them. Other occurring offences are breaches of licensing acts. Now this could apply to something like a dog licence, or it could apply to the selling of alcohol without a licence, or the consumption of alcohol in an establishment that was unlicensed. It could apply to other things too. For example, during World War I, certain what were regarded as essential foods were rationed, and it was an offence. You had to have a license to sell or to buy any of these foods. Flour was an example, it was one of these foods, and sugar was another one. You had to have a license to buy or to sell any of these. And people who, the coupons were issued to people, and they had to make arrangements. The coupons were issued by the police, and people then had to designate the shop where it wished to purchase whatever ration of whatever quantity of sugar or flour, whatever it was allowed to buy, in respect of each individual in the household. The shop kept half the coupon, half this document coupon, whatever it was, and the household kept the other. Now, and you could only purchase these commodities or foods by using this coupon. So in the village of Castletownshend in 1918, a number of people there were about 5 or 6 people before Union Hall Petty Sessions Court, charged with either selling or buying flour without a licence. Now the interesting thing about it was the judge was very sympathetic, because they were only fined 1 penny. 1 penny. Now that might sound like nothing to us now. In those days it was, for a hell of a lot more to do. And usually the Petty Sessions courts, as I say, they dealt with these. They dealt with minor matters, minor crimes, but they could impose a prison sentence not exceeding 12 months with or without hard labour. They could impose fines, of one kind or another. The usual thing would be, for example, now, if somebody was found drunk and disorderly, he wasn't in trouble, and he went away quietly or whatever, but he was just drunk or whatever. He was usually fined maybe 1 and 6, and the costs were usually a shilling or 1 and 6. If he was very troubled, well, there's one case there now where somebody was found drunk and disorderly in the public street in Clonakilty in 1988. No, he must have kicked up the hell of a row, because he was sentenced to 1 month in Cork male prison with hard labour. He was drunk and disorderly in the public street. Now, it's the only case I've encountered in several cases where a person got a prison sentence with hard labour for being drunk and disorderly. We usually fined a shilling, 2 and 6pence, or 3 shillings or something like that, and costs as well. Now there was also, the person was, the offender was fined, when convicted was fined, let's say, such an amount, 2 shillings and 1 shilling cost. But there was also a proviso that on failure to pay this fine, that this person would be committed to Cork Male Prison, usually for 7 days, without hard labour. So that was usually another part of the decision. That's about it really. So the other thing now I want to talk about is let's see now. Oh yes, in relation to petty sessions courts as well, you know, you find cases vary quite a lot, but there's one case there now where in 1919, and this is now, you know, the War of Independence and all that kind of thing, where two brothers were charged with, before you in Hall, Petty Sessions Court, they were charged with stealing, carrying or taking away, or receiving, knowing them to have been stolen, 8 pairs of boots, 2 pairs of shoes, 11 tins of axle-grease. Now, some of you probably realize what that it was used for horse carts, wasn't it? You remember it? You know? 7 tin, approximate value, £10, 1 shilling. That case then was referred to the Quarter Sessions in Banbury. It was referred to. That's it. Now, the other thing now I kind of maybe I'll come back to that again. I want to talk about is we say elderly relatives as a source of information for the family historian. Now those, you know, before I go with those petty sessions order books, they give you the details of a case, you know, and they also give you an insight into local life, you know, like, I mean, local squabbles, you know. There was a case there now in Dunmanway where was it Dunmanway? It was Dunmanway. In the late 1890s, where a woman was before the court because she had stolen a silver watch and chain, the property of I think it was Danish or Barrett, approximate value of £5. And then there was the next case after her case before the court was in respect of a woman who had received this watch and chain from the said convicted thief, knowing them to have been stolen. And then after that there was another case again relating to the two, where the original thief, if you like, was before the court for assaulting the woman that she had sold the watch to with a stone and causing her serious injury. And she was fined 10 shillings and 6pence with the 1 shilling costs, and there was a provision that she would serve a prison sentence if she failed to pay the fine and the costs. So you kind of the courts then they tended to group cases together too. You know, like dog licenses, we'll say unmuzzled dogs, cases under the licensing acts. You know, there was another one there I forgot to mention. Another case that was quite common enough too. It related to light weights. Now, do you understand what you know, measures that had been tampered with? You've heard of weights and measures and stuff. So somebody would be court to court found that the weights that he was using, like, you know, the weights that are used for weighing coal, or in the old days everything was weighed. Nowadays vegetables packaged, but flour, everything was weighed. So, and if the weight was tampered with and lighter than it should be, you know, it's easy enough to tamper with the weight, because underneath the weight, those of you who have my vintage would remember that to kind of fine-tune the weight, as it were. There's a cavity under the weight, and you have to put in so much lead in there, you see, to fine-tune the weight, or else remove lead to make sure it's right, you know. And so if you removed all the lead, you know, the weight would be lighter. Or if you drilled another hole in the weight would be lighter, you know. And if you interfered with a measure, you know, we'll say if you had some, like a pint measure or a gallon measure, whatever, and made it slightly smaller, say 10% smaller than what it should be, and you got a tinsmith to make it for you, then you would be short-changing everybody who bought the paraffin and whatever, you know. there were cases relating to such matters. Now, elderly relatives or their associates can be a great starting point and source of information for the genealogist. Now, the voice recorded, carefully planned, well-conducted interviews with elderly relatives, where the distraction of note-taking, I'll say something about it in a minute now, is avoided, can prove quite fruitful for the genealogist. The elderly tend to have excellent long-term memories. They might have short-term memories, but they tend to have excellent long-term memories, and a wealth of information about deceased relatives and previous generations. And you see, when you they give you a useful starting point. You know, they'll tell you something, and then, you know, they give you, in other words, you can find out the names of ancestors from them, you know. That gives you a start, you know. You can find out where they lived from them, you know. Something that you could have the hell of a lot of searching to do to find out on your own, you know. And the other thing about them as well is, as I've discovered, that if you're note-taking, you know, it kind of puts you off and it puts them off to point. But if you voice record the thing, you know, everyone tends to forget about the machine and talk away, relax, talk away about everything, right? And the other advantage of recording an interview like that then is that you can play it over and over again afterwards, and you can think about it and try and figure out what exactly, you know, maybe if you're not clear on something or whatever. Sometimes if you're interviewing someone and you're notating, you tend to kind of interpret what they're saying, and you take shortcuts making, you know, recording the thing, and sometimes you can misinterpret what they're saying. But if you record what they're saying, you always have the opportunity of playing it back and re-evaluating what they're saying. Am I making any sense at all? I hope. Now, and I haven't any drink taken in case people are worried. Now, the other thing I've discovered as well is that I can recall interviewing elderly relatives. My brother tipped me off about these two brothers. They're distant relatives. And he said, so I went along anyway and I interviewed the two. And they were delighted, of course, to have someone to talk and, you know, to listen to what they had to say, because I suppose a lot of people weren't listening to them at that stage, they were elderly. And I felt that a lot of what they were saying, I felt a lot of what they were saying was they seemed to be contradicting what they had already said, and they seemed to be mixing up generations and, you know, and so on and so forth. But I discovered after, you know, I took that I felt going with, this was largely a waste of time, but I discovered after it wasn't. Because when I played back what they had to say, you know, they had said certain things that proved to be useful, you know. And the other thing I'd say about them is that I took a photograph of the two, and when I looked at that photograph after, about maybe 8 years later, and I looked at it, and I said, I could see, like, one guy was sitting in an armchair, and there was a shotgun up against, you know, and just beside him. I said to myself, and then I thought afterwards, and I learned afterwards, in fact, I said, what the hell was he doing with that? That, in fact, they lived in a very remote part of the country. They had suffered quite a bit from, they were being annoyed by itinerants who were pestering them and basically trying to rob them in one way or another, or take things from them and so on. And one day anyway, one of them produced the gun, and they didn't see the itinerants anymore. You know, he brought out the gun, and so they felt insecure and they felt threatened, and that's why the gun was there. And the other thing that occurred to me as well, when I looked at the conditions they were living in, you know, the photograph illustrated that. And you know, there was a newspaper covering the wear on the table, you know, and there was an old dog like under the table, and the place wasn't great, like, but you know, the photograph just brought all that back to me, you know, and so on. So this is actually, you know, a recording of information as well. Photographs can record information, even that you mightn't, you know, be searching for that kind of information at the time. Okay. So anyway, that's that. Now the 1901 and the 1911 census. And I suppose you say, sure, we know all about them. I know you do, but I'll just say a few things that occurred to me. The census, you see, they include invaluable family history research material. You see, that's that. It's online, the online availability of this material and the access to it contribute to its extensive national and global use for genealogists. However, it is advisable to use the image of the original household census form with the word process version as the latter, that is the word process version, has some errors. And it is also advisable to compare age and place of birth information on the household census form with parish records towards verifying the accuracy of census information. Be careful now as I go on with this, because I'm going to talk about the ages of people's ages and things like that. Conflicting information in 1901 and 1911 household census form returns of the Jeremiah Healy household, Corrigans, King Williamstown, County Cork, illustrates this, that you have to, that the information may not be accurate. Now, I'll just show you there that the image of the original form. Here it is. That kind of thing. That's the original image there. You see of the form, right? Now the word process version, of course, is more attractive to read because it's easier to read. You don't have to be trying to read handwriting and that kind of thing. But the problem about the word process version is that it has some mistakes. Now, if there's a letter, if the letter in the middle of a word is wrong, that's not too bad. But if the initial letter of a word is wrong, that's serious because it's the name of a townland or something. Now, so an examination of this household, of this household's 1901-1911 census returns shows that in the 10-year period, 1901 to 1911, the children shown in both census returns, you see, they had aged exactly 10 years, which you'd expect, while Jeremiah Healy, the head of the household, had, for some strange reason, aged 11 years, and his wife Mary, for some extraordinary reason, had only aged 8 years. Now, Mary is recorded as aged 34 years, 2 years older than her husband Jeremiah in the 1901 census, while she's recorded as 42 years, 1 year younger than her husband in the 1911 census. So she was 2 years older than in the 1901, but she's 1 year younger in 1911. Excepting the 3 youngest children documented as County Cork births, County Kerry is the recorded place of birth of the remaining documented Healy household members of the 1901 census. However, in the 1911 census, County Cork is recorded as the place of birth of every member of the household. So in other words, seeing is believing, and that's what's there. In the 1911 census, members of the household are recorded as being born in County Kerry, and some of them are recorded as being born in County Cork. But in the 1911 census, every member of the household is recorded as being born in County Cork. No mention of County Kerry. So what the hell do you do in that case? You see, this is a challenge. However, in the 1911 census, now, fortunately, related King Williamstown parish baptismal records corroborate the 1901 Healy household census returns in respect of age and place of birth. So when you look at that, the baptismal records, the parish baptismal records for both parents now themselves, the recorded place of residence of their parents parents of the head of the household and his wife, is Knocknabowl, the townland of Knocknabowl, County Kerry. And the recorded place of residence of the head of the household there, Dan Healy, and his wife Mary, in respect of the birth of his first 4 children, is not the townland of Knocknabowl, County Kerry. And the recorded place of residence, that is known as baptismal parish register, in respect of his first 4 born children, children, 4 children born, is Knocknabowl, County Kerry. Now the recorded residence, his recorded place of residence, in respect of the other remaining children, is Corrigans, County Cork. So, if you just said, okay, I'll just deal with the 1911 census, I'll take my information from that. Sure, it would be all wrong, you see, and if you're likely to be wrong. But since the baptismal records in the parish corroborate the information in the 1901 census, it's reasonable to take that information as being accurate, I think. Now there's another thing too about the census returns, that in providing in respect of each married woman, the 1911 census now has an extra column that's not in the 1901 census. You'll notice that, I suppose, that's very important. And it provides in respect of each married, in providing in respect of each married woman the number of live births and the number of children still living. The 1911 census identifies the total number of children to be researched in each household. And it says the researcher from searching for non-existent children, because the census tells you, in respect of that household, it tells you that there were 12 live births to that married couple, or to that married woman, Healy, and that in 1911, when the census were taken, that those 12 children were still living, So then, when you're searching for the details of their children, you know who to search for. You've just to search for 12 children, no more. Otherwise, you wouldn't be sure how many children were there. 1901 census now doesn't have that useful information at all. So I suppose at that stage, I haven't any more waffling to do, and I don't know how I'm doing the time and the rest of it. I don't know how useful you feel what I've said has been. But I hope you feel that some of what I've said is in some way useful and helpful to you in your family history research endeavours. So thank you for the opportunity.